Dipping back into the mailbag to talk about Jayson Tatum's wrist, the Celtics getting their own arena, a local kid that we want to see, and a future podcast idea that might just end my career. It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day and returning to the podcast to enjoy a third episode this week. It's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday episode schedule for the week. Next couple of weeks probably. And then in the middle of September, we're going to get back to daily, Monday through Friday, thanks to a couple of people who tweeted out that they need this podcast to come back daily. It's coming back daily before you know it. Monday through Friday. That's generally the schedule here. So thank you for subscribing. You can get this podcast wherever podcasts exist. It's free. It's available everywhere. And you can watch the show on YouTube. I'm John Karalis. I cover the Boston Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. And I'm going into my 16th season covering this team. I've written a book called Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. Plenty of content out there for me. And today, some mailbag stuff that ties into some recent events. Jayson Tatum, we'll talk about his wrist. Later on, questions about the Celtics arena, a local player, which local player we'd like to see, and an idea for a future podcast for me and for Tom Westerholm, which, Tom, I think we would enjoy. But we'll wait till I get to that later on in the show. How you doing, man?
I am so freaking locked on Celtics right now.
I almost believe that. You were very convincing when you said that.
Yeah.
It's the end of August. Nobody should be locked on anything in the end, but that's okay.
Can I ruin something for your YouTube viewers? Because it drives me, it doesn't drive me insane, but I can't stop looking at it.
Is it my face?
No, it's the background. I mean, no. It's certainly not your face. Come on now. No, it's like on the background. If you look very closely at the net, it like the Locked On Celtics logo turns the bottom of the net green, and I cannot stop seeing it. So I just wanted to, I wanted to make everybody else feel.
Did I not Photoshop that quite well enough? I mean,
it just needs this much. It needs this much touch up. And now, if you do it, everybody will appreciate it a little bit more. You're welcome.
Okay. I didn't realize that. It's an oversight. I went through a lot of trouble to get this done, but
I'm here to
enough. Nothing's good enough for Tom Westerholm. That's, I think, what we're.
Look, man, I'm here to help. That's all it is. All right.
Let's see if I can just get a little smudge there. No, can't get it. All right, let's answer some questions, and I'll maybe fix that, or maybe I'll just be a stubborn Greek and just make you deal with it.
I think that's a much better bit. I think you should do that.
Next time. See, this is my reaction. This is my absolute pull the curtain back. My reaction, make the whole net green.
Yeah, I think you should.
Screw you, Tom.
I think you should.
You know what? I'll make the other net green. I'm going to make everything green. You know what? I'm going to make you green. I'll find a way to make you green because how dare you? How dare you? That really is my knee-jerk reaction. My knee-jerk reaction is, you can't tell me what to do, which is a very poor initial. That's something I've had to overcome for so long. You're like, wait a minute. There's good advice. People are just trying to help you. But that's blame. Well, I'll get my dad on the podcast, and then people will be like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. I get why this is the case. All right, let's.
I want to be on both the Millie's pod and your dad pod, for the record.
I'll have my dad interview Millie's, and that'll be the last episode of Locked On Celtics. I'll tell you that much. All right, let's get into these questions here, because Anthony C has a question regarding the recent report that Tatum played with an injured wrist. How concerned should we be about the injury, considering Jaylen Brown needed surgery? I know we don't know the extent of the injury, but Jaylen Brown needed surgery. How is that the media didn't disclose this injury? I love this question because it encapsulates a lot. So let me just first answer the direct thing. The injured wrist, we all knew that there was the injured wrist because we saw that the wrap around his left wrist. I asked him about it. He made a joke about Nick Sang, his trainer, wrapping it too tight, being too thorough, when in fact, recently on Bleacher Report, he disclosed, oh yeah, it was actually a fractured wrist. So it was a non-displaced fracture. That means the bone broke, but the bone didn't like move or float around or anything like that. It healed, but it was painful. It's a completely different injury than Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown had a ligament injury where you have to go in and have the surgical repair. Tatum's no ligaments, just a bone thing. Once the bone heals, it heals, and that's done. So why did the media not disclose the injury? Well, we did. We saw it. We asked about it. He and the team never disclosed the extent of the injury. So unless someone got in good with Tatum's people and none of Tatum's people were going to disclose that injury privately to any sources. So no source, he's got a broken wrist, so be easy on him. No one was going to give any of that information out. So that's the answer to the question. So Tom, I'll pose it to you. What do you make of Tatum disclosing this when he did in late August?
Yeah, I think just to touch on and agree with your point here, like it would have done nobody any good to leak that Tatum had a wrist injury, and like because we talked about this on the last pod, but the immediate reaction would have been like, oh, Tatum's making this up for attention. Oh, Tatum's trying to like excuse his poor play, his poor shooting, whatever.
Excuses. He's making excuses, Tom.
Look at Mr. Excuses over here, right? And like that's no player wants that reputation, right? Like nobody's trying to be a baby about their broken wrist that they're playing an NBA basketball game with. And then also like the later you get in the playoffs, I mean it's an intense time to play basketball. If somebody knows that you have a broken wrist, I'm sorry, you're going to get slapped on the wrist, and it's not going to be like entirely accidental, like it's like, like these things, guys want to win. Like if you're Tatum, there is actually value in not telling people, like, if you're the Celtics, like, and obviously like, every time he falls to the ground, he's gripping it and stuff. I don't know. I think there's a very real chance that like part of it too is just like, part of it is like, okay, I don't want to, I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses. And part of it too is like, nope, I'm fine. Go ahead, slap my wrist, see if I care. Like, yeah. I don't know. I think it's a little bit of both, but from the top down, from Tatum's people, there is no reason to leak that information. The doctors aren't going to like get it because of HIPAA, like the team certainly isn't going to leak it to anybody, both because of, like just Tatum's privacy, but then, also again, like
competitive.
It's competitive. Like, yeah. So that's why that information never came out. That's why that information wasn't going to come out until Tatum talked to Taylor Rooks, perfectly timed halfway through the offseason. Like,
right.
Yeah, there is a time when the media gets that stuff. And as soon as Taylor Rooks got it, she disclosed it like any of us would have. So
of course. Yep. And look, it was his offhand. So I'm not going to blame that too much for it. And the other thing is my question was like, all right, since the NBA is very much now in bed with the gambling industry. And the one thing that gamblers don't like is not having all the information. Right. So I'm sure that there are some people in the gambling industry who are like, what do you mean it was broken? I would have bet against the Celtics if I'd known it had been broken. And that tends to float up to the top. And there's a lot of money at stake.
Yes,
so I feel like there may be some blowback. Now, the Celtics could say, hey, look, it was hurting, it was painful, but the injury had healed and it was just pain. So there might be a little bit of kind of gray area because that's kind of what Tatum said.
That's literally what he said. Yep.
Yeah. So it felt like he said he was kind of playing with a fractured wrist. and I guess he sort of was, but it had healed. So I don't know exactly. It's gray enough where the Celtics might not get fined. They might not. I don't know, but they may also. There might be a stern talking to coming to the like, all right, guys, just a finger wag. Just make sure you report your injuries because of the gambling, the injuries have to be reported. So not a big deal.
Right.
I don't how much do you think it impacted? I think the fatigue impacted his play much more than the wrist impacted his play. Although it may have led to a couple of the turnovers.
I mean, I think honestly, it does kind of explain, like, I mean, he was missing shots around the rim, that kind of thing. Like, it does help to, it's one of those things where, I mean, even if you've got a sprained ankle, right? Like, even if you jump off the other foot, when you come down, you still feel a little like,
Sure.
It's in your head a little bit.
Mentally, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if that's I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of it too, But yeah, I mean, I think the larger point, I think a lot more of it comes down to the Celtics had a tougher road through the playoffs, and like you said, the fatigue and all of that stuff. Like, finally, like, this is why it did suck for them that they had to face the Nets in the first round and the Bucks in the second round and a super spirited Heat team in the third round, and et cetera, et cetera. And then you had to try to face the game breaker Steph Curry. Like, I think a lot more of it comes down to that sequence of events and that specific opponent, more so than the wrist. But I mean, look, an injury that affects your best player and the linchpin of your offense is, that will mess with you. So yeah, I think it all comes together.
Yeah, I mean, you're dribbling left and you want to whip that wraparound pass to the opposite corner. If your wrist hurts, then maybe you're less likely to make that pass. You're a little off with that pass. You're trying to compensate and you throw it a little high, a little low, gets picked off. I mean, any of those things are possible. So I'm not saying it didn't affect him, because
you're less likely to hit the deck, to take a layup where you might hit the deck because you don't want to catch yourself. Yeah,
there's the mental aspect is definitely there. So that's kind of everything there with the Tatum injured wrist. It is what it is. Don't be concerned long term. A bone healing is a bone healing. As long as everybody, and we saw him playing basketball without the wrap on his wrist, so that's fine. I don't expect that to be anything. And again, Jaylen Brown's injury was significantly different, even though it was in the same spot. One is a fractured bone, the other one was ligament. So that's that. We're going to come back with a question about, will the Celtics ever own their own arena? Will they ever get their own arena? It's an interesting question, one I would love to see answered yes, but we'll see. I was talking about the gambling industry before, and there's no doubt the Celtics are the betting favorite at BetOnline.net. 5-1 odds for the Celtics to win the championship. So better than anybody else, even after Kevin Durant went back to Brooklyn. And BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on things like this and all your betting needs. You can find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. You can find news and reviews of every league, obviously including the NBA, but everybody else, Major League Baseball, NFL, which is really ramping up, NHL coming back soon, combat sports, esports, golf. You can also get live in-game betting for these things, scores, podcasts. They have you covered because BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information. So head on over to BetOnline today. You can use your mobile device to do so. Learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline is where the game starts. Please gamble responsibly. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day, because Locked On Network is your team every day. You can head on over to any other Locked On podcast, any other team. So the Lakers just traded for Patrick Beverley. Do you want to know what the Lakers' perspective is? How excited are they to get Pat Bev? You can go to Locked On Lakers. How excited were the Nets to get Kevin Durant back? Go to Locked On Nets. Just check in on the competition. See what they're thinking so you can visualize and come up with your retorts on Twitter. It's all there on the Locked On Podcast Network. Let's bring Tom Westerholm back in. Question from Cooper G. Tom, Will the Celtics ever own their own arena? And if so, where will it be?
That's a great question, Cooper G. Especially the second part. Like that's the thing that always trips me up with it is I have a hard time picturing, at very least, like the current ownership group wanting to kind of have like the New England Celtics. And I mean, even if they could still call themselves Boston, if they're outside the city a little bit, I don't know. Like right now, they're just, right smack in the middle. Like that.
Yep.
That feels like and it's just, you kind of get like the T coming in underneath, the commuter rail coming in literally underneath. Like it just, I feel like the location is very classic Celtics, and the Celtics are a franchise that loves and reveres classic, So, and I mean, look, it's very expensive to come up with a new arena. So if I were to guess, not anytime in the near future, but yeah, I mean, I would guess not in the near future, I guess, to answer the question.
Definitely not in the near future. I think they just re-upped their lease. So that's going to be what, for another, I should have looked this up before, but I
can get it while you're looking.
So the Celtics extended their lease. Oh, so it's through 2036. So another 14 years. So where can they go in 2036? I mean, anywhere. I would love to see them get their own arena, because it changes the game so much when you can get your own income, your own gates, beyond your own gate. You can get your own concessions. You can get money from concerts. This is what makes the Warriors so powerful when it comes to spending. It's not that their owner is just like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to be like Steve Ballmer. It's that the Chase Center is like a giant Chase ATM, and you just print money for them. Now, I don't know if the Celtics can ever get it to that extent, but if they could, in 14 years from now, so much will change. I mean, I always loved the Assembly Square area, but that has since been built up. So that Assembly Square, I think, is just out as an arena, but it's right off of the highway. It was so easy. I literally have a Google Maps open here, and I'm just kind of like moving around. Tom, I have one spot that makes the most sense for me.
All right.
It's a partnership with the Encore Casino, and to go into Everett. And I'm sure there's a lot of eminent domain going on over there, but I think it wouldn't exactly be their own arena, but a deal with Encore where there's a joint venture and they split things more equitably, and that becomes a new kind of facility. Now, Encore is right on the water, so you can have, there are spots right around there that it's kind of very it's like oil and kind of energy, and there's a lot of places where things can get knocked down, and things, again, a lot of eminent domain would probably have to happen. It'd probably be very bad press and a lot of political fighting, and that's another reason why it's been very, very difficult. Spots are limited. To get a spot, you have to pay a lot of money, and you got to grease some palms in this city. You really got to grease some palms. And so the political fighting will make it very, very difficult. So, but Tom, I think, we're looking at 13, 14 years from now.
Right.
I don't see any reason not to start putting out the feelers. And Encore's already an advertising partner, a sponsor for the Celtics. Most casinos have a venue where they can have performers, concerts. I go to Connecticut Sun games all the time, and they're constantly advertising some concert in there. I know Chris Rock just came through and did a couple of shows. Why is Encore going to miss out on that? So, I mean, the competition would increase, but I think something there, if the Celtics do ever get their own place, makes the most sense for me.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to do it, that makes sense. You can still, and then you were, capitalizing on being on the waterfront. I mean, that's working out very nicely for the Warriors for sure. I mean, I think my biggest qualm with it, and my biggest reason why I still just kind of have a hard time seeing it is just like when you look at other teams, right? Like the Lakers and the Clippers splitting up. It makes a lot of sense to have an NBA team in Inglewood. LA is I just looked it up. LA is like roughly 500 square miles. Boston is like 80. Like it's there is just
a little bit bigger.
A little bit bigger. And like obviously there's more people in LA too, but regardless, like it is, it is just it's packed in. It's going to be tough to do. Now, what I will say is like when you talk about greasing palms, you talk about all that stuff, being by Encore, there is a lot like, there would be some eminent domain stuff, but there would also be some real synergy between Encore and the Celtics, right? Like I mean, if you're Encore, 17,000 people pouring out of the arena 41 times, guaranteed oh my gosh, you are just in. Yeah. You're looking at that and just thinking, like, I'll help you grease some palms if I have to. Yeah. Steven Wick. So, like, I think, in terms of that, I think, Everett makes probably more sense than anywhere else if the Celtics were going to split off. But again, it's just going to come down to, can they find the space? Because, of course, they want to, right? Like, of course, they want their own concessions, their own gate, their own, money machine that they can just continue. They can continue printing, into the future. But it will be interesting. And you're right too. This is the time to do it because this is not going to be something that can come together in 2 years. This is something that could come together over the course of like a decade. So if you start doing it now, maybe by 2036, we'll all be underwater. But if we're not underwater, it'll be it'll be great.
So build further inland is what you're saying. Build on stilts.
Yeah, see what Ohio has to.
Yeah. So instead of going in Everett, you want to go up to like Malden. You go like deeper into like Revere or something like that.
Look, Pittsfield can there's.
I mean, you could do like the Pawtucket Red Sox. You just move the team to Worcester, right? That'd be fine.
Hey,
let's go.
I'm a proponent. I'm
not bitter about that at all.
Shout out the Woo Sox.
Yeah, boo. The Boo Sox for me. Boo. I really do question if the Celtics are actually. There's a lot of effort going into making that current facility everything that it is with the hotel and everything around there.
Yep.
They make a lot of money there too. And if the Jacobs might just say like, look, we're going to keep you here. We're going to make as sweetheart a deal as we possibly can to keep you here. And because that's just income. And if the Celtics leave, build a facility, and now there's competition for these concerts and shows and stuff like that, the last thing the Jacobs family wants is empty nights at the Garden when there's a show going on at whatever, the Bill Russell Arena across the way. So,
or not for nothing, another game. Because if the Celtics are in another arena, there's absolutely no reason that the Bruins and Celtics can't have games on the same night.
That's true. That's a great point. There's also that. And that would be tough. That would be a tough competition. The team that's rebuilding would lose a lot. And look, that goes for the Celtics too. That goes for the Celtics. So the Celtics can say, we're going to build our own arena and blah, blah, blah. And then after Tatum and Brown retire or whatever like that, and everything gets sold off, which is right about then, we're talking about 15 years from now. They're like 2-3 years into a rebuild. That might not exactly be the right time to launch a new building, with Deuce Tatum, Jayson Tatum Jr. in year 2. Sure, he could be a selling point, but with the 15 win Celtics, I don't know. So could be.
I mean, that's why the Warriors situation was so perfect for them because I mean, any NBA owner is jealous of that one.
Let's get into another question here. We got two more to go. So let's power through here. Which Massachusetts, this is from NJ. Which Massachusetts or New England born player would you love to see in green? Tom, you are very, very much scouting everybody. We can go anywhere we want with this. But do you have any? When I say which Massachusetts or New England-born player would you love to see? I think we can go in so many different directions.
Well, that's true. I mean, look, I think they already got him. It's Noah Vonleh. Boom.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
No, I think for me it's probably Bruce Brown, right? Like, I mean, he's he's really good, and I think he if he ever ended up on the Celtics, I think he'd be a perfect fit next to the guys they have. We talked about it last time in conjunction with the Nets and how, he was the perfect kind of low usage, high defense, versatile kind of guy who can, just kind of water, filling in a lot of different cracks, because that's those kind of guys are so unbelievably valuable in the NBA. And he grew up. I think sometimes you'll hear guys who like grew up in the area, but they were still like a Kobe fan. They were fans of like the greats. Bruce Brown was a Celtics fan. Like, he was at Celtics games. His favorite player was Rajon Rondo. Like, this dude was like a real deal Celtics fan. I think it'd be kind of fun if he ended up coming back home.
I wanted him so bad. I wanted him so bad this summer. That when he was Denver, when he signed with?
Yes.
Yeah, that when he didn't sign with the Celtics, I was just like, oh man.
The Nuggets. You were right. Good job.
Good. Yeah, my August brain. I mean, there's a lot of synapses that have just gone into hibernation, but
yeah,
that was still in there somewhere. I feel like, okay, so I think he would currently be like the player. I think a good one might be Georges Niang, who could fill in a nice role.
Yeah.
I mean, in a kind of like in a Danilo Gallinari way, but like younger and more effective, I think. But yeah, I think he would be a nice player to have. Where's he from? Haverhill?
Sounds right. I'm not sure exactly.
All right, let me see here. I got it from somewhere. Lawrence.
There it is.
Lawrence, Haverhill, right next door. Same thing. Thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone from Lawrence and Haverhill who just listen to be like, don't you ever say same thing ever again. Don't you dare. So yeah, I think he would be a good choice. Another possibility, Duncan Robinson from Maine, went to school in New Hampshire.
Yeah, if you want to count that. They did say Massachusetts pretty specifically, I feel like. But
he said Massachusetts / New England born player.
Okay. New England
so
born.
We can go. I can tell you the one New England born player that I would absolutely number one want to see in green, kid that was born in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Goes by the name of John Karalis. I would love to see him get a contract with the Boston Celtics. Little past his prime. Has to get back into some shape, but feel like you can give him a solid 30 to 45 seconds a game.
Listen, I'm gonna go a different direction with a different Massachusetts-born future superstar, which is Rafi Westerholm, who is an 88th percentile in height and has beaten the neighborhood kids not once, not twice, but 3 times in Tiger, which is a variation of horse, pig, whatever you want to call it. So. Look, I am sure that Mike Zarin is listening right now. Any of you guys who wants to, any of you GM, adjacent people who want to get in touch, I will give you all the information you need.
So how old's Rafi?
He is 5.
He's 5. So
he could be the piece that moves you into a new arena, the superstar.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking is, because Deuce Tatum is right about that age too.
A little bit younger, yep.
A little bit younger. So,
I mean, a problem duo. You don't want any part of that.
Nope, no, not at all. I figure you got Rafi spacing the floor out there. Deuce driving. I feel like Deuce probably gonna be a little taller. He might be the driver.
Yeah, he might be a little taller.
Might be a little taller.
He might be. I mean, Deuce was like Rafi is. I think Rafi might be like a full year older than him, and Deuce. Like, I remember Deuce running around and me being like, "How is this kid 3? Like, this kid is
he's
huge.
5'6". How is that possible?" No, that kid's tall.
He's gonna be a tall kid.
Yeah. So, all right. I like that. All right, let's wrap this up. This is a fun idea. It comes from Jill P. It says, here's my idea for a future podcast. Have a drunk podcast with Tom. Start by taking 2 shots. Each time Tom says a predetermined word or does an action, you'll take a shot. Tom won't know the word or action in advance. You can announce it when editing your intro. The bottle is on me. All right. So Jill's buying us booze to do a drunk podcast. What do you think of the idea? Like a little kind of like secret word.
So I love it, but here's the only problem with it, Jill, is that it will then make me hyper aware of whatever like weird little tics I have, and it will completely throw me off for the future. 100%. That said, I am willing. It sounds like fun. I'm willing to sacrifice my future mental health for this podcast idea.
I wonder. Well, I guess I'm willing to sacrifice my entire career for this podcast idea. I mean, if Zach Lowe can do a drunk podcast, I can do a drunk podcast in August.
Correct. It's August. What are we doing here?
It's August. Like, let's have some drinks, right? Let's do it next Friday, maybe on one of these Friday shows. Got nothing else to talk about. Let's have some fun and do a thing. I don't know what thing it would be that you do that makes. And the other problem is, and you know this, Tom, and this is where I need. This is where I need some of one of our friends who normally makes a joke about my ability to hold my liquor. The problem is that it takes a while for me to actually get drunk. The podcast might have to be a couple hours, and I might have to do like every time Tom blinks to be my trigger, because like if we're gonna get me drunk by the end of the podcast, it's gonna have to happen like it's. Look, I'm almost 50. I'm Greek, so I'm born with a tolerance. I mean, my mom when I was teething would rub ouzo on my gums, so that's telling you exactly where we were coming from. That's the old Greek. Oh, just put some ouzo on you. Like, you got me drunk as an infant. Like, what do you want me to do? So yeah.
You're 6'6".
I mean, yeah, I'm a big guy. Yeah. You know, I got a couple of extra pounds that I'm trying to. So it's like, there's a lot. There's a lot here that would take for me to get to that drunk podcast. So I like the idea. It might require some pregame. I might have to come in. We'll have to do like an intense planning session in which I get a few drinks in. You can start during the podcast. You could start.
I could start. No problem at all.
Yeah. My
Nicole, our friend Nicole Yang of the Boston Globe would say that my phrase might be distinction without a difference. She makes fun of me for that one because I do say distinction without a difference a lot, but I don't think I say it enough on a pod to get you drunk by any means. So
you had one podcast where you made it. I think you said it twice, and I recognize that.
Yeah,
I didn't want to name drop Nicole because I didn't know if she would appreciate. She's so private. And
she never tweets.
She never tweets. But yes, your former partner on the Genotime podcast, which we're still waiting for that last episode to drop. You can't just drop that like 2 years from just randomly, just
man.
Reunion.
It'll happen.
Get Brenham back. Where's Chris Brenham been?
It's all a mystery. It's all a mystery.
Well,
it's like Tatum's wrist, man. It's Nick saying wraps the podcast too tight.
I guess that's Tom's way of saying wrap this crap up, John. We've exhausted this.
But let's get you drunk. Let's do it. I'm in.
Let's do it. What the hell? Why not? It would be the most poorly edited podcast because there's like getting me drunk on the podcast would be like fun and who knows where it would go. I still don't have a feeling even if I was like really gone, I have this ability to hold it together.
I think you could do it. I think you could be like stumbling out the door still just like in podcast voice.
Yeah, I think so. But my problem is that I then have to I have work to do when we're done. We stop recording and then I have to stop and download and edit and upload and write a description and all of that stuff. So the podcast part would be fun, but then there's the other work that I have to do where I'm like, Why does Tom have 5 eyes? I don't remember Tom having 5 eyes. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, that would be tough.
Well, that's the end of this podcast. That's for damn sure. So thank you, Tom. Appreciate you hopping on.
Appreciate you.
Thanks to everybody for the questions. More questions here. There's plenty of more questions coming in. I only picked a few of the more fun ones for this particular episode, but all of the podcast questions can come in via johnkaralis.com/mailbag, or if you just go to johnkaralis.com, there's a mailbag link at the top. That's how I get the questions, because I can't be going. People want to DM me on Instagram, DM me on Twitter, leave comments on Facebook or on YouTube, and just comments all over the place. I just can't keep track of them all. So because I'm an old and I don't have the wherewithal to go through all of this stuff, just go to my link, johnkaralis.com/mailbag. Leave your questions, leave your comments. Appreciate everybody who's done so, everybody who did so. Here, Monday, Mailbag Podcast. We'll continue to do that until training camp starts, and then we get into more basketball talk. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. This way, whenever the podcast drops, whether I do an extra one or just Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like I've been doing in the off season, you'll get it on your device. If you watch on YouTube, you want to get that notification when the show drops, you can hop in, try to be the first commenter. I know people like to do that. You can give it the thumbs up, give the comments, all of that. Really do appreciate you all doing so. I also appreciate you sharing the podcast and telling your friends and family and everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.